It's December 95, Bills Dolphins in the wild card round. This is Remember That Game, a podcast about sporting events that take you on a journey and maybe chart the path of the zeitgeist. I'm your host, Thomas Emerick, and my guest is Denny Carter, Roto World and NBC Sports, creator of the Bad Faith Times newsletter, opted into being raised on Miami Dolphins football, and 1995 was supposed to be their year to make it out of the AFC. But now a four-time guest, he's back to see what happens with that. Welcome, Denny.
Thank you, Thomas. I can't believe it's been 4 times. It just so happens that so many Dolphins games in this period were notable for their devastating impact on fans of the team. And you're right. I mean, just for folks who don't know, who might not have seen the other 3 episodes we did together, I was born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area. So I had no reason to be a Dolphins fan, none, except for 2 things. I am a contrarian, so I wasn't going to root for the home team. And I liked the Dolphins colors when I was 8 years old. So I went with Miami.
And Miami was the 1995 preseason Vegas favorites among AFC teams.
Really? Okay.
But 6-1 paces the bunch. Not all that far behind Niners and Cowboys at +2 and 300. Then in the wild card round, you face Buffalo again. Has it ever been established so hard?
No. But really, that's what it always came down to for the late Marino Dolphins. They couldn't run the ball and they couldn't stop the run. And so, you know how that goes.
Yeah, Denny was here for the maiden voyage where we talked Dolphins-Bills in the playoffs. First ever guest on Remember That Game. Folks, check out our Dolphins trilogy, which now turns into a quadrilogy because I think we can do more to mine the Buffalo Bills torment you faced in your formative years and see if that's why you want all games indoors. But what is the childhood experience like for the elder millennial Dolphins fan, and how did the Bills play into that in the early 90s?
The hard thing about being a Dolphins fan in the late Marino era was that they would start out so well almost every year in the early 90s and then into the mid 90s, even into the Jimmy Johnson era. And I don't know if it had to do with the weather, because really, like, at least it used to be a huge advantage where it would be so hot at Dolphins home games that the opposing team had really no chance. They would wilt, and Dolphins would, look like a dominant team early in the season, especially if they got 2 or 3 home games, right? And then, the weather got colder and they had to go to New England and they had to go to play the Jets in New Jersey. And then obviously Buffalo was just total disaster. And so you just braced yourself. Honestly, I used to brace myself for November and December because it was never fun. It just was never a fun time of year. And all those expectations that you had built up in September and October just completely wiped out by that point. So they gave you a lot of hope, and then they would just pull the ripcord late in the season every year.
Yeah, the Dolphins in Miami in September boil the opponent like a lobster, but come late in the season, Bills have their way in Buffalo, much like in 95. Home game in Miami, they start strong, as you mentioned, beat Buffalo at home in September before a midseason swoon and December recovery. They do get 3 out of 4 that month, with the one loss, of course, coming in Buffalo 2 weeks prior to the game we'll jump into. A close one, 23-20. Did that have you talking yourself into this time being a little different, or was the 10-0 home record of wild card teams to date since 1990, the Bills' 8-0 playoff record at Rich Stadium to this date, was all that history with the Bills too dispiriting to get your hopes high?
No, my hopes were high. And it's because now that I'm kind of thinking back to that era, it's because that Bills team, that dominant Bills team that lost a million Super Bowls, was in its final gasps, right? Like they were running on fumes. They were getting old. Jim Kelly was like so old at that point. I mean, I don't know. He might have been like 35. I don't know. But like the way that he was playing was old. Okay.
Old
So
back then was different, you know?
yeah, true. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I
They
mean,
show pictures of Phil Collins from the 80s, and they're like, he's 25. And you're like, what?
like, no way. Yeah. And so there was a sense that like, okay, like this team can't do it. And before this game, I'm sorry, before this podcast, I was actually looking up some offensive statistics from the 95 season, right? And the Bills offense, to call them mid, it would be a compliment. I mean, they were not good. On the ground, they were top 5 in rushing yards, not efficient. But you know, bottom half in almost every category, almost every efficiency category. And you know, so you're thinking, well, this is the year the Dolphins can get past them. And it just never happened, man. It just never happened. The Bills had a lot of dog, like the early 90s and mid 90s Bills, they had a lot of dog in them, and the Dolphins had no dog in them and still don't really.
They get big dogged by the Bills in week 16, and that clinches the division for the Bills once again. Meanwhile, that seemingly knocks the Dolphins out of playoff contention, though it does turn out they can get in with a little help from John Elway. He leads a fourth quarter comeback in Oakland, week 17. John Elway, the consummate Bronco, even though Shannon Sharp and Terrell Davis were sat by Shanahan that game, he'd rather screw the Raiders than the Dolphins.
Yes.
And Dan Marino. What were the lunchroom combos like, and how did they evolve in the 90s between your guy, Marino, and going against all the Elway stands?
Yeah. So I guess maybe I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but one of my good friends in middle school and high school was a huge Broncos fan, and like had a reason to be a Broncos fan. You know, his family was from Colorado. They had season tickets back when they lived in Denver, and so he was like born and bred a Broncos fan. He suffered through, you know, a pretty rough period there, really, before they got good, before they became a Super Bowl team. And I do remember, now that you mention it, the Broncos beating the Raiders to get the Dolphins in, because I was my buddy and I were talking about it, and I was very happy. Thank you for relaying that message that we needed you to win. But really, I wouldn't have done that if I would have known that 2 years later the Elway would win a Super Bowl. At that point, Thomas, I had just assumed that Elway and Marino would never get there. That it was too late, and that me and my buddy could commiserate as fans of all-time quarterbacks who would just never win one. And of course, Elway wins 2, and I never recover.
Elway gets Shanahan. Do you ever think about the alternate timeline where obviously Don Shula, legend in Miami, wins the 2 Super Bowls for them, but he's been coaching the NFL since 1963. And even though in this game he's 65, which is just 2 years older than John Harbaugh is currently, modern health and medicine, but we see teams and the Steelers with Tomlin, they shake things up a little bit after a couple decades. Would it have been different? Would Marino have gotten back to at least a Super Bowl media week if the Dolphins in the late 80s go and get like a Shanahan or a Holmgren or something like that?
I think so. I mean, don't get me wrong, like a younger NFL fan today can't comprehend how little access we had to information back then. I used to subscribe to a Dolphins newsletter that would come to my house once a month, and I used to look forward to that thing like it was oxygen, you know, and I would read every single word in that little paper every month, because you didn't have, you know, there was dial up, but really there was no real internet coverage of the NFL. So I wasn't sure like if Don Shula was like a genius or like what he was doing exactly as a coach. There was just no indication. I think he was a manager more, and he would make pretty good hires to run the offense and run the defense. But I as you know, Thomas, there are certain coaches that you can't fire, and Don Shula is one of them. Like you just couldn't. Although now that I think about it, Tom Landry was fired, wasn't he?
Right, late 80s. And then some before this Bills game, the announcers are saying Shula's back next year. Ownership wants to keep him around, but one wild card game, we see really tough wild card game. We see that today. That changes things sometimes.
Yeah. So the next year, Jimmy Johnson was in the saddle, right? Shula was out.
Yeah. During this broadcast, they're saying, "Hey, we reported today Don Shula's back," and then a few days later, meets with Wayne Huizenga, and then Shula stepping down.
Right. That was a shock, because it was one of those things. It's like it's kind of like living, and maybe this is too close to home right now, but living in a country where you have the same leader for like generations, like some might call it a dictatorship. And then the people can't imagine life without that person in charge, right? So like sometimes you'll see footage of people when their president of like 50 years dies and they're just having like nervous breakdowns in the street. That's kind of what it was like with Don Shula when he left. You're like, wait, what are the Dolphins? Who are they without Don Shula? It was really like a culture shock, really.
Yeah. Wayne Huizenga sold Blockbuster Video and owns the Dolphins and the Marlins.
Right.
And
I forgot about that.
It's kind of interesting. I guess we'll go in and out of chronological order in this game, but just to skip to halftime really quick, and we'll come back. The announcing team of Brent Musburger and Dick Vermeil, this is a 24-0 game. They decided to go to the owner's box during halftime, I guess, to see how pissed off everyone is. And he was like, Wayne Huizenga seemed like totally calm, but selling Blockbuster Video in 1994 might do that.
Yeah.
But yeah. But they start ABC starts this they kick off wild card weekend. This is the first game of the weekend slate with a Blockbuster Video favorite, Jeff Goldblum, hopping out of his trailer, hot off Jurassic Park. Well, I think it was like 2 summers prior, but obviously
Independence Day.
Yes, so he looks like he's wearing his Independence Day garb.
Yeah. So you said you were going to show that clip, right? Because I need people to see this. It's Jeff Goldblum. Like someone gave him a football and was like, "Hey Jeff, can you just like burst out of your trailer for 3 seconds and say I'm ready for some football?" And then that's it. But he says it in the most Jeff Goldblum way possible, and it's perfect. It's perfect. I mean, I still like that guy. I don't even know the last time I saw a Jeff Goldblum movie, and no, I didn't see Wicked. But as a kid at that time, I really loved Jeff Goldblum. I thought he was like the most fun to watch. Him and like Will Smith were like the 2 most fun actors to watch. So seeing that thing that you linked me was really good. Also, if I may ask, why did they do like a Halloween theme? This was in January. And it was a Halloween theme because it was like graveyards and zombies and whatever.
Yeah, it was like right around New Year's Eve, and they really wanted to. And I don't know what this has to do with that, but they maybe someone else. Maybe there was a reason that I can't see, but they really wanted to play up the morbid angle.
Yeah. The idea was that all the other teams are dead and only these teams survive. And you know what else was funny, Thomas, was in that clip, they showed 4 teams on bye. Remember when that used to happen? So many teams used to get bye weeks compared to now. You only get the 2 1 seeds. I kind of like it better that the other way.
It seems like you are, yeah, I kind of go back and forth in my head a little bit about whether it devalues or makes the regular season more important. Obviously for the 1 seed, you're rewarded more, but a lot, I guess it depends on the season. Some seasons it's like there's 2 teams to cut above, others there's 1, but it was crazy to see also that wild card, the first 5 years of the wild card starting 1990, teams were 10-0 coming into this weekend, or the home team was 10-0.
Really?
Straight up. And it won't be the case for the Bills next year against Jacksonville, but here
that was
against the
glorious.
Dolphins.
I love that game. I love that game because that was the end. That was the end of the Bills dynasty. Rest in peace. Someone said rest in piss, whatever you want to say. I was so thrilled. I was a Jaguars fan that day. I watched that game with my grandfather, and we didn't watch many games together, but we watched that one. I was over his house for some reason. And I just remember being like ecstatic. And he was like, why are you so like pumped up about this? But I was like, because it's over, Grandpa. It's over. Finally, we're freed. We're freed from this tyranny of the Bills in the AFC East. Sorry, go ahead.
And then you curse them to 25 years of no playoff wins.
I did. Yeah.
I guess perhaps after this game, did you do any curses?
I did. Little black magic. You know how you do. Yeah, that was great. But I guess no, it was several years later that the Jaguars ended Dan Marino's career, which we did an episode on that.
Yeah. We did that postseason where they beat the Bills, they get that vindication, and then the following you talked about how the Marino's career was he was summarily executed by the Jaguars to keep the morbid thing going that ABC had their for 1995 the kickoff wildcard weekend too. These are the bodies that are of the 18 or at that point it would have been 18 teams that have already deceased. Here are their graves. Here are the 12 teams remaining. We start with wild card weekend, and first drive for the Dolphins, not so great. Marino, he has a pass to Eric Green, which he'd have a tough day. The Bills and Dolphins had kind of a 1v1 with big free agent hauls. Dolphins with Eric Green from the Steelers, Bills with Bryce Pop from the Packers.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, Green was a tight end, by the way, big tight end.
Yeah, I mean, a guy we'd probably be talking ourselves into taking in the 8th round every single year.
Yeah,
maximum exposure. This year in the Dolphins, that didn't go so well. It was interesting on the NFL primetime. It's Marino. He had some throws against the Bills in both these games. He'd probably like to have back. At the same time, we talk about supporting cast for Marino versus the other quarterbacks in the greatest of all time discussion. It was interesting. I felt like Chris Berman on the NFL primetime might be a Marino best of all time truther because he was a little more vinegar than you're used to from Berman. He was like first pass to Eric Green. He was horrible. That's the beginning of the NFL prime. I'm not used to that kind of vinegar from Berman. Wow. But you will see a few drops early from Eric Green. You'll see a drop from OJ McDuffie on an early possession. Offense has trouble getting going early, and then the Bills drive down and score. Thurman Thomas, Steve Tasker, who was like a special teams guy.
Oh, he was so annoying. God, that guy was
annoying. He barely played receiver until this year. He's tearing up the Dolphins in the opening drive and Dolphins defense. Where's he among your most tilting Bills of all time? and who are those three most tilting Buffalo Bills?
I mean, Andre Reed definitely is first because Reed would like rub it in your face, and I actually met him at the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and I just like forced myself to shake his hand. And I mean, I don't have any real strong feelings anymore about it, but shook his hand. I was like, hey, I was a Dolphins fan growing up, so you tormented me pretty good, but you're a great player. He just laughed, said thanks, but so he was at the top for me. I guess Jim Kelly was probably second because I didn't understand how he was doing it. He just was bad. I don't like he wasn't good. He wasn't good at all. He was so physically limited. Didn't have an arm, but just got it done. And that drove me insane as the guy who rooted for the team who had maybe the most talented, throwing quarterback of all time. It drove me nuts that the guy with no skill set kept beating us. So that was number two. And who was the special teamer? Tasker?
Oh, Steve Tasker.
Tasker bugged me on like a visceral level because I think he wore an enormous helmet. No, that was Don Beebe. Maybe it's Don Beebe. But anyway, one of the white guys on the Bills wore an enormous helmet. It looked ridiculous. And he would just like instantly put up 100 yards on us every time. It just seemed like out of nowhere. He was never used anywhere else, like you said. But he would just pop off. Tasker would just pop off against us. It was to the point where Tasker became an announcer, I think, for CBS later. And I could barely listen to him talk. Nothing against Steve Tasker. Probably a nice guy, but he drove me insane as a fan.
Yeah, and he'd account for most of the Bills' offense on their first scoring drive. Meanwhile, Dolphins go down 7-0 early. Oh, no, it's happening again. 10-0 after the first quarter. Not terrible. When you look at the box score, but yeah, you watching it, no, it's over. as a Dolphins fan.
Totally. No, you've seen this movie, yeah.
And the Bills are also really start to establish the run more in the second quarter. People called Derrick Holmes are getting 21-yard touchdown runs. And this is a great, I mean, some people on YouTube didn't love it, but I thought Brent Musburger and Dick Vermeil did a good job. And it was interesting how much more candid the coaches were with the information and then like the pre-production meetings. Because they'd say before it would happen early in the game, like Tom Olivedati, the Dolphins defensive coordinator. Yeah, and to your point about Jim Kelly, the defensive coordinator, told the announcing crew, and they said it before it was happening, like, hey, we have to disguise, we're going to be in an over front, and then change that post snap, or else Kelly's going to audible into a run that just gashes us. And still didn't work here, but they also said, like, right before Marino, like just as the play was about to begin, hey, we were in practice all week, and Marino kept throwing downfield against the left cornerback. They said we're basically going to go with that rookie Kerner all day. And the next play, you see Marino throw down the left sideline against the rookie. But the wind gusts in Buffalo, the cold, and several, and just Bruce Smith getting to the quarterback made that hard to develop. But Marino's zip pre and post Achilles, did that seem like a big thing by as early as 95, where it was starting to?
I don't know if I'm just like a Marino homer or whatever, but I remember the general sense was that when he returned from the Achilles, and that he played the first game against the Patriots in Miami, and it was a shootout between him and Drew Bledsoe. I'm sure maybe we talked about it at one point, but I think we did, yeah. And I thought Marino's the sense was that Marino's arm was all the way back. That he was accurate, but in hindsight, I think those like laser shots that he used to throw across the middle, those were not really happening anymore. And his lower body was a disaster. I mean, he had knee injuries, ankle injuries. He had the Achilles situation, and the Achilles injuries back then, it was like the Stone Ages compared to now, where, like Aaron Rodgers pops his Achilles and says, "I'm going to be back in 6 weeks." Well, I mean, there was a real question: will Marino ever play again? And his Achilles.
George Kittle's going to be back this week.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's limited on Friday in practice, and so the surgeries were not as advanced as they are now. So Marino had to play with a shorter Achilles on one side, and so they had to make special shoes, special cleats for him. And I've actually taken a picture of those cleats in person because they have them. They bring them around to every Super Bowl. And when NBC sends me, I always find those cleats. But and so he couldn't really push off, is what I'm saying. His lower body was not the same. He couldn't push off, and as you know, that power, that throwing arm power, that comes from the lower body primarily. And I don't think he ever really got it back.
Yeah, and that'll make it tough in the cold and the wind at Rich Stadium. Where again, no one has beaten the Buffalo Bills in 8 games. And folks, check out Denny's by the time this comes out, it won't be that far away. The Super Bowl coverage, a Super Bowl media week. Denny will be out there for NBC Sports. Also, check out a few episodes we've referenced. 98 Wild Card, Bills versus Dolphins, and we did the 94 divisional Chargers Dolphins, and the 2000 Wild Card, the first non-Marino one we've done, the first non-Marino playoff game, Dolphins Colts, the Lamar Smith game.
Yeah,
check out all 3 of those. Denny's. Now in the 4-timer club with Steve Palazzolo, we just did the Jaguars Bills game a couple weeks ago.
right.
So the whole 90s Dolphins multiverse here. Remember that game?
Yeah, that's right. So have we gotten to halftime yet? What's going on in the game?
So rolling up to halftime, the Dolphins are down 24-0 after Steve Tasker 37-yard touchdown pass from Jim Kelly.
That's what I'm saying. That's annoying.
Somehow he had never had 100 yards in a season before 95. He'll have 100 yards in this playoff game against the Dolphins. Of course, the 7-time Pro Bowl special teamer Steve Tasker has to be tilting, and it caps off the half of the 37-yard touchdown. 24-0 Bills at the half. Fortunately, Dolphins have more passing yards, but the Bills have established it pretty good. It's about 250, and the Bills aren't even anywhere close to done running the ball. Brent Musburger will talk about how that they know Thurman Thomas is coming, and they can't stop it. They had an idea for how to trick Jim Kelly on the audibles, but it's got to be tilting. He doesn't have the talent of Marino, but he's audibling into the right run calls, has the mastery of the same K-gun offense for like 10 years. And an offensive line where rookie Reuben Brown is just creating wide open lanes. That first drive of the second half, the Bills, of course, run, but fumble. And of course, Dolphins fail to fall on the ball. That seemed like a chance to get back in. The announcers are talking about how the Dolphins on the verge of a great embarrassment. Are you able to sit through that second half?
Yeah. So that morning, I was just thinking about this. That morning, it was a Sunday, correct? Do you have that?
Saturday. The first Saturday afternoon. We're in the formerly Texans slot.
Okay, this must have been a different game then. Well, there was one Sunday. Slot. Right.
The formerly and future Texan slot.
Bengals, Texans always, but there was one Dolphins-Bills playoff matchup where my parents let me wear my Dolphins jersey to church that day, and it was a big. I don't know how I convinced them, but even the pastor said something about it, so we were cooking. But
which Dolphins jersey?
Marino. I mean, I had like 4 or 5 different Marino jerseys. I had a black one, which was so cool. You have no idea how cool that was. I got it at the stadium. My dad took me, I don't know what year it was, 94, I guess. But yeah, I'm sure I watched it. By that point in my life, I was 12. I would have been taking it very seriously. By 14 and 15, not as seriously. I had other things to worry about, like girls. But at 12, I didn't have anything else to worry about. So I worried about this. And so I'm sure that I was a mess. I'm sure this was hell for my dad, because he was watching it with me and he had to deal with me probably having like an emotional meltdown over another loss to the Bills. I don't know how he dealt with it, but he did somehow.
Yeah, they're on pace for their third double-digit loss against the Bills since the start of the 90s here, and it's only 95. 90, they lose in the divisional round, and then 92 conference championship, trip to the Super Bowl on the line at home, and they lose 29-10 to the Bills at Joe Robbie. McDuffie will have so if you play the 4-game slate and you roll with OJ McDuffie, you're going to get 11 receptions on 17 targets for 154 yards and a touchdown. So Marino will end this game with 466 passing yards. Jeff George in that Falcons game with 366. Imagine the mid-90s, 64 pass attempts and 54 pass attempts from quarterbacks in the wild card round.
So Marino had 64 pass attempts.
Yeah, he'll do some generational stat padding late in this one.
Okay. Bring me through. Are we in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. So third quarter, pretty much nothing happens. Just Steve Christie field goal. Fourth quarter, Dolphins get on the board with a 5-yard pass from Marino to McDuffie. 27-7. Okay. 3-score game. Like we see Caleb Love do this.
Right.
Sorry, you had to admit that.
Yeah. Okay. I know, man. The Bears folks are letting me have it, and rightfully so.
Wait, but could you imagine an aggressive handshake between Marv Levy and Don Shula?
No, I can't. Both of whom were men, grown-ups. And unfortunately, there are no grown-ups coaching today. Especially not Ben Johnson, who is just an angsty teenager, really.
But he's unlike the. Well, we'll see. Maybe the Dolphins get to the division around here because they're only down 20. Levy and Shula have shook hands 22 times. Levy 16-6 of those 22. And each time it's a great starter jacket matchup. Yeah. Is there a better combo than Bills Dolphins early 90s starter jacket combo?
I mean, I guess you say the Cowboys probably.
But like two teams that really combo. Just they come together at midfield and the dopamine goes to your brain.
That's right. No. That you're probably right about that. I'm trying to think. I guess the other combo that would activate the dopamine receptors would be Packers Niners.
That's a good one.
Maybe that's a little later, but like Packers Niners was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I also love. They wouldn't. You'd see in Week 17 in a playoff with playoff stakes for the Raiders, but not as much in the playoffs. But the Raiders Broncos. Starter jackets, and wearing them and shaking hands in midfield together. I'll also put that one up there.
Yeah, sure. No, I like that. Yeah, well, and this was the old school Broncos one. This was before they had that horrible logo.
Yeah. Is the NFL capitulating to millennial dominance by bringing back all these mid-90s uniforms this year?
That's a good question, Thomas. And I think so, but I also want the Zoomers to know that we all thought these things were ugly back then. Like, we thought that the Seahawks had the worst uniforms in sports. And when they wear their old school stuff today, it's considered universally cool. And for me too. I'm like, oh, cool. This is a nice look. But back then, it was corny. It was stale. It was maybe it had to do with the Seahawks just being bad. I don't know. But a lot of these uniforms were rejected by like popular culture. No. This is the Bucks. Give me a break with this Bucks creamsicle stuff. This is a reversal of what we believe. We thought that was an abomination, and now today it's the coolest thing ever.
It seems like a lot of revisionist history from millennials.
Yeah, right. It's back. No one liked this.
Yeah, but because our the faulty camera in our minds is remembering these as great uniforms, it is in a way a millennial cultural dominance that the NFL is bringing these back.
Hey, we didn't get much, but we got that, and so that's nice.
We got every Super Bowl halftime show for the foreseeable future.
We do have that.
Of course, the Zoomers might overtake us.
Well, not this year.
Show.
Not with Bad Bunny, right?
Is he? The Zoomers have him.
I thought he was like a Zoomer guy. No,
definitely, yeah. He probably straddles the two. It's hard to claim millennial. My lawyers are looking into finding where this is a this is a co-op sort of agreement between Zoomers and millennials.
Yeah, I don't know. Yep. I mean, I can't pretend I'm familiar with his music, but I assumed that young people were.
They definitely, yeah. I'm gonna say enough millennials. It's a Camp David of generations Z and
wow, you're really going back.
For me to claim still continued millennial cultural dominance. But a good starter jacket combo, but we're not shaking hands at midfield yet because OJ McDuffie's brought this down to 27-7. That is short-lived. Something called a Tyndale. He has a 44-yard rushing touchdown. Apparently, he won the Canadian version of the Heisman Trophy. And he's the next long touchdown run for the Bills. What's it like seeing just a parade of random running backs and fullbacks run for 20+?
Yeah, that's all. It's cool when it's not just Thurman Thomas running roughshod over you. It's everybody who gets the ball. I mean, the Dolphins just were continually throughout this period destroyed at the on the line, like at the point of attack or whatever they say, like they'd be pushed off the ball, teams could run it. Even teams that couldn't run the ball ran the ball against the Dolphins, and that effectively kept Marino off the field, a lot of the time. He was frustrated by it. He was frustrated by a lot at this time, but the Bills knew that they could just run the ball. I bet you if they had like pass rate over expected back then, I bet you the Bills were regularly 20-25% under their expected pass rate against the Dolphins, just hammering the run.
Yeah, and the announcers said that this year Jim Kelly was yielding to the play calling a little bit more with play action. Normally it's K-gun and I'm audibling, but a little more play action this year, and it was messing the Dolphins up, having them all sorts of confused in this one. Only 22 pass attempts for Jim Kelly, but 195. And I think it was like a higher yards per attempt in the first half when the Dolphins were still within 20 points. But you're tormented by the Bills again. I may have said Tyndale. There's no way I try to say this correctly. It's Tim Tyndale.
Okay.
So Tim Tyndale is someone running for 44 yards for a touchdown for you. Against you. You're down 34-7. We will get 2 more touchdowns from the Dolphins. Make it look kind of close, 37-22. Marino keeps chucking, nearly goes for 500 yards passing.
Wow.
In cold weather. But it is this. I mean, we talked about the spiritually crushing Bills losses and how tough it was to um to get your confidence up when you see the Dolphins make the playoffs, and how much you hated watching the Bills, and eventually it crushed your Dolphins fandom.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not for a long time though. I
yeah,
mean, I rooted for them through like 2003, 4.
yeah. It survives into the Wanstead years of, like, grinding out a playoff spot or even wild card win and then just getting absolutely crushed.
Yeah. I
Um,
started playing fantasy football in '05, so that was the end of that, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I just at some point, I was like, "I don't care about the Dolphins anymore, I care about my fantasy team."
yeah, and when your advice is to, you know, pay whatever the price is for Josh Allen that week, or you got Josh Allen on a roster in a key
Mhm.
matchup, or in playoff, in playoff formats, um, would it be what would 10-year-old Denny say to you,
Mm.
as you're rooting for Josh Allen and the Bills? And
Yeah.
does anything linger from that Bills hate back then while you watch the Bills try to make their first,
Yeah.
Super Bowl campaign successfully?
It really doesn't. I'll be honest with you, that stuff is so far in the rear view for me, yeah, I'm glad I experienced it. It's good, I think it's good to, at least for part of your life, if not, I guess, all of your life for some people, imbue sports with meaning, and, that, helps you feel like part of something, right?
Cultural thread, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you feel like, you make it for yourself, right? Like, I made myself part of the Dolphins team. They didn't know I existed. I didn't
Rondé
even live
Gaston
in
did.
Rondé Gatson did, because I emailed him and told him that he stunk. And he responded, "Thanks for being a fan." And so you do that for a while, and it is a good experience to, I think to go through that. But yeah, when I see Josh Allen play today in the Bills, they could be anybody. It doesn't matter to me. In fact, I'm going heavy on the Bills this weekend in DFS. I don't care what anybody says.
A and, I don't wanna jinx it, 'cause I would be happy for them, but we had, I think you've said maybe your favorite game of all time is the first time the Bills just got wrecked by the Cowboys in the Super Bowl,
That was
um,
yeah, that was a favorite. Yeah.
in '92. Um, could you potentially end up fast forwarding 20, if not this year, 20 something years later and see yourself rooting for the,
Mm.
Bills,
No,
to get their first no, okay.
no, no. Well, no. I mean, you asked earlier, what would 10-year old me would come up to 42-year-old me and kick me in the shin as hard as he could. Like, he'd be like, "What are you doing? You're a traitor to the cause, to the team."
'Cause, like, the Seahawks already have a Super Bowl, so if it's I'm just not trying to jinx either team anybody, but if it's a Bills Seahawks Super Bowl and he sees you saying, "Hey, I'd like to see the" I'd be
Right.
happy for them to win one, and
Yeah.
I'm playing Josh Allen in DFS. And he'll
Right.
kick you in the shin.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But also, like, I know a fair number of Bills fans online, and I feel for them. They've been through a lot, and so I'd like to see them not be so, down bad. Their team, it's a fan base that has had enough tastes of success over the years to not be completely intolerable when they have success now. Whereas, like the Jaguars, every time they're good, it's like their fans are kind of a nightmare. The Bears, are showing what that's like. It's like
Oh,
basically like being locked in, being like locked in an asylum for like years and years and decades even. And then they let you out and you're just like you're looking for revenge, like you're just so mad that you've been locked in there the whole time. You've been irrelevant, and now you're relevant, and you're beating the Packers, and you're just gonna give it to anybody who says anything about your guys. Um, so I get that. I get that. Bills fans are not like that. So I would like to see them be happy. Yeah.
you curse the Bills to 25 years of
Right.
playoff victory-free football. But over that time, everyone's built character. The Bills fans have built character. You've built character from those losses, and we're all friends now. But at this time, the crew seems to, again, not just NFL primetime, but the announcing crew, they put a little more vinegar on it than they do these days. You see a little bit of vinegar from Chris Collinsworth, but I don't know if it changed when like Jim Harbaugh stormed in the booth and attacked Jim Kelly in '96. But in '95, they would go hard. I thought it was very good broadcast. A lot of people on YouTube didn't like it, but I thought it was a very good broadcast, entertaining one from Musburger and Vermeil. So it ends with it's 37-22 at the end.
Really?
And the final clock seconds tick off as Bernie Kosar in for Dan Marino throws a check down to Terry Kirby, and that's it. And then from Brent Musburger, so the Bills advance. Coming up next, it's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions. Robin Roberts will set the table as Brian Cox is escorted off the field with full security.
I remember
another unhappy exit stage right. So long, Brian, and so long, everyone.
Musburger was like that, wasn't he?
He was just wilding. I forgot about that about Musburger.
Musburger announced like he had nothing to lose. And maybe he didn't, but I mean, yeah. So Brian Cox was so reviled by Bills fans, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy was just a complete jerk. He's a guy you like to have on your team, but man, you hate him if he's not on your team. And yeah, they had to actually like surround him with security to get him off the field and out of the stadium because of the things he was doing with fans. Like he was like threatening them. It was like a DK Metcalf situation, but without the actual physical contact. It was bad.
There's a photo of him from week 16 flipping the double bird on his way out into the tunnel. And another big storyline coming into the game that Brent Musburger was not afraid to touch.
Did he touch on that, or was another one?
Like mentioned a little bit, it's kind of like a decent drama builder coming in that they made some use of in the broadcast. That Cox's interactions in those fans in Rich Stadium 2 weeks prior, and there was actually one play where it's kind of a light fling, but Cox does fling Jim Kelly, and Jim Kelly kind of was flying like a rag doll. Of course, he's like fairly close to the end of his career at that point. So, but it was like a kind of a light fling, a little late. Probably gets called roughing nowadays. Back then, almost never. Then I think Vermeil goes like, fooling around a little bit there. I don't know if Cox wants to do that in the stadium. And so
it's true. I mean, it was a powder keg situation for Brian Cox, and it was his doing. Don't get me wrong. Like it was his fault. He was like the bad boy. He really didn't fit in with the rest of the team. And I don't even know how Don Shula dealt with him because he was a very new school kind of player. And Don Shula coached the same way he did during, I don't know, Nixon, at this time. So not to get political.
Yeah, and he'd been coaching the Dolphins since Nixon. Last question here. So going into the game, as mentioned, Musburger was like, hey, we got news today. Huizenga's keeping Shula on to finish his contract. And then Wednesday they have a discussion, and Shula steps down the next day. Shula is going away, press conference. He said, when I first got hired, I didn't have they asked me if I had a 5-year plan. I didn't have a 3-year plan. I didn't have a 1-year plan. And he still holds the only one season in NFL history with no losses, at least in the Super Bowl era. What was it like then that transition period where I guess, and also in the second half, the announcers they cut to a pregame, or post pre-production chat with Shula where Westberger's like, "Hey, what's it like having the community turn on you? These local polls that ask if they should let you go, and they say you should." And Shula answers that like calmly,
Wow.
but is like, it doesn't help that Jimmy Johnson's looking at this job like
Yeah,
I have a pork chop around my neck, or
that's
I
right.
forget exactly what he said, but w- uh, is he still the best Dolphins coach you've watched in your lifetime? Even though it was the latter years, very much
Mhm.
CEO executive type, or is Jimmy
Yeah.
Johnson or Wanstead or Mike McDaniel up there?
No, it's not, McDaniel looked like in 2022, it looked like McDaniel was gonna be that guy, but didn't work out for several reasons. I guess it would be Shula. I wanted to like Wanstead a lot. I actually think Wanstead did a lot with what he had, and he didn't have much as far as like skill goes. He went a long way with those teams. But yeah, I mean, I think it's Shula. Like I said, I mean, CEO type, management type, like he put people in charge, he delegated well. He didn't interfere, I feel like where when things were kind of going sideways for the offense or defense, like he wouldn't get in front of the cameras and be like, we got to do better with this or that, and like people are going to lose their jobs or what, he wouldn't be threatening, he wouldn't be condescending at all. Like he's like a very much a gentleman, very old school, like I said. uh he would have never ever survived in today's NFL. He was just too nice. I mean, he was just way too polite and not egocentric, and I think you have to be an egomaniac pretty much to be an NFL coach today.